We are very close now. Christmas is almost here. And when it is this close, it is tempting to rush, to move quickly to the parts that we know by heart, to the manger and the angels and the shepherds. Luke slows us down. Before Luke gives us a child wrapped in cloth, he gives us an old priest who has been silent for months and then finally finds his voice. Zechariah is not a character that we linger with very often. We know Mary's song. We know John shouting in the wilderness. But Luke insists that we stop here first, because Zechariah knows something about waiting. Luke tells us he is righteous, faithful, careful to do what's asked of him. He is not careless with God. He is not cynical. He is tired. He's tired. He and Elizabeth have prayed. They have hoped, not just for their own situation, but for the world that they see. And over time, they have learned to live with prayers that do not seem to be answered. So when the angel tells him that Elizabeth will bear a son, Zechariah asks the question I think many of us would ask: how will I know this is so? And suddenly, he cannot speak. I don't think this is about punishment. I think this is about interruption. Zechariah is given 9 months of quiet. 9 months to watch God do something he had stopped expecting. 9 months to learn that faithfulness and expectation are not the same thing. And then the child is born, and the neighbors are delighted. And immediately they assume they know what comes next. The child will be named Zechariah. That's how it works. That's how the story continues. But Elizabeth says, no, his name is John. They don't believe her, so they turn to Zechariah, and Zechariah asks for a tablet and writes, his name is John. Not will be, is. And just like that, his voice returns. And the first thing he says is not an explanation. And it's not a story about what he's been through. It's not even relief. It's praise. It spills out of him. It sounds like the Psalms. It echoes the prophets, and it reaches back through generations. Zechariah sings about a God who keeps promises, a God who remembers mercy, a God who comes close enough to change the course of history. Now, Luke tells us something curious about the people who hear all of this. Fear comes over the whole neighborhood. Not because anything terrible has happened, not because someone is hurt, but because God has come too close. The future no longer feels predictable. The old patterns are shifting. Something new is being born, and no one is quite sure what it will become. Sometimes fear isn't a sign that God is absent. Sometimes fear is what we feel when God is near. Walter Brueggemann once wrote that Advent is preparing for the demands of newness that will break the tired pattern of fear in our lives. Advent is preparing for the demands of newness that will break the tired pattern of fear in our lives. That feels right here. Not fear because something has gone wrong, but fear because something might actually change. Because if God is near, the old answers might no longer be enough. If God is near, we might not get to stay exactly as we are. And that kind of fear doesn't mean that we lack faith. It may mean that we are standing next to something very holy. Most of Zechariah's song isn't really about John at all. It's about God. God has visited the people. God has shown mercy. God is bringing light into places that have had and known a long night. God is guiding feet, real human hesitant feet, into the way of peace. This hope is big. This hope is personal and political, spiritual and embodied. Luke doesn't try to tidy it up. He just lets it be true. And then the story ends quietly. The child grew and became strong in spirit until the day he appeared publicly. Nothing is finished yet. Everything is beginning. Luke places this story here on purpose. Before the manger, before the angels, before the shepherds, he makes us wait. He makes us listen. He invites us to notice what God is doing before everything becomes familiar. Beloved, Advent is not just about waiting for Christmas. It's about learning how to wait without losing hope. without closing ourselves off, without assuming we already know how God will act. We are very close now, but we're not there yet. And so maybe the question before us is not what we still need to do. Maybe it's whether we can see where God is already at work. Because God is still visiting people. God is still drawing close enough to unsettle, close enough to change us. God is still guiding feet, even fearful ones, toward peace. Zechariah doesn't end by telling us what to do. He ends by telling us who God is. And maybe that's enough to carry us the rest of the way. Amen.